We take Gotham from the corrupt, the rich, the oppressors of generations who have kept you down with myths of opportunity, and we give it back to you, the people. Gotham is yours. None shall interfere. Do as you please. Start by storming Blackgate and freeing the oppressed. Step forward, those who would serve. For an army will be raised. The powerful will be ripped from their decadentness and cast out into the cold world that we know and endure. Courts will be convened. Spoils will be enjoyed. Blood will be shed. The police will survive as they learn to serve true justice. This great city, it will endure. Gotham will survive.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
You can't handle the truth. King Kong ain't got shit on me. I am the Lord Revelation.
I am so much crazier than you.
I am the one who knocks.
Go ahead. Make my day.
Nice thing, big boy, huh? That's Brock. Fucking
Everybody on? Good. Great. Grand. Wonderful.
And we're back. Gabe fell off a waterfall. I broke my back, but we both worked our way back to you,
The people.
the people. This is Facing Off. We are back for another week what do we do? We review and we compare and contrast two movies. Today's movies are The Dark Knight Rises and Black Panther. Two movies about superheroes who fall from grace and then work their way back up to grace.
Yeah. That's pretty much it.
And suffer at the hands of a morally ambiguous villain.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. And for anybody that was confused why we would choose just out of any Batman movie, Dark Knight Rises, it is exactly that. It is nearly identical plots, which is so weird because...
But they do, yeah.
Dark Knight Rises
generally,
is like...
Yeah. Generally similar plots, these two movies. We are back and happy to be presenting this episode for you. We hope that you've enjoyed our last couple episodes. And do we have shout-outs?
No shout-outs. You guys should have sent us emails, but you didn't. But that's okay. We are hoping that you have shared this podcast with someone new in the last week, and if you haven't, do that, please. It would really help us. We are ranked in France for film reviews. We are number 28. So let's get to number 1, baby, in France. Hey, where are my French people at? C'est la vie. Fucking chicken cordon bleu. All right. Anyways, let's get into this episode. Break down like a little synopsis for Black Panther and Dark Knight Rises.
Should we start the fire?
Nick, the fire rises. That's going to be us the whole
We're just going to be talking into cups.
The fire rises. The Dark Knight Rises.
All right, that was probably really quiet. Okay.
It's good, though.
Dark Knight Rises is the finale to Nolan's Batman trilogy. That's Christopher Nolan, not
mind you
any other Nolans out there.
Nolan Ryan,
Nolan Arenado. They're only baseball players.
I think there's a hockey player.
Probably. Yeah. Okay. In The Dark Knight Rises, the finale to the Batman trilogy, we find the titular Dark Knight injured and reclusive after framing himself for the death of Harvey Dent and grieving the loss of his beloved Rachel. As Bruce Wayne is lured out of retirement by Selina Kyle, a Catwoman burglar, a masked terrorist named Bane makes his way to Gotham and plots to turn the island city into a lawless example for the rest of the world. Batman attempts to take on Bane, but Bane breaks his back and is exiled. Batman is exiled to the very prison that Bane came from. As Batman heals, Bane, in his quest to rid the world of wealth and class structure, holds the city of Gotham hostage using Wayne Enterprises' nuclear energy cell as a bomb and cordoning off the city from the outside world. As the Dark Knight rises, titular, it is revealed that Bane is but a henchman for the offspring of Ra's al Ghul, who we come to learn is a woman named Miranda, who is a woman named Talia, who is a fellow industry titan who worked alongside and also slept with Bruce Wayne, right?
Yeah, and who is a woman?
Who is a woman.
Because you said that multiple times.
Yes.
She is one.
She's a woman named Miranda, who is a woman named Talia, who is the offspring of Ra's al Ghul.
Yes.
Batman carries the bomb away towards the ocean in his cool new bat plane and escapes just in time as the bomb explodes and probably kills a bunch of fish. Bruce lives the rest of his life in anonymity with Selena Kyle in Europe.
Yeah.
Enjoying Fernie Brancas.
Is that what those are? The drink?
Yeah, they're like it's like an herbal liqueur.
Oh, shot by the river.
Fernie Branca.
And I'll know
Black Panther.
that we both...
Black Panther, the other movie that we are doing today about a superhero who dresses like an animal. Black Panther begins with T'Challa's rise to the throne of Wakanda. As he assumes his late father's crown by defeating the challenger of the throne, M'Baku, we learn that a man named Ulysses Claw is attempting to sell vibranium, the source of Wakanda's technological superiority, to the CIA. T'Challa and his crew of badass women capture Claw and interrogate him with a CIA agent named Ross, who's a former pilot. That's important later.
Yeah.
Claw is broken out of their interrogation cell, however, by Eric Killmonger, a former deep cover operative, and spoiler alert, a man of Wakandan heritage and T'Challa's cousin. Killmonger kills Claw, brings his body to Wakanda in order to prove his worth and reveal his heritage. He defeats T'Challa in combat handily and takes the throne. He orders Wakanda to arm the oppressed throughout the world and start a revolution. Also, he throws T'Challa over a waterfall. While King Killmonger readies the Wakandan forces, Ross Okoye and Nakia try to plead for M'Baku to eat the heart-shaped flower that provides the Black Panther with his power. But M'Baku reveals that T'Challa is actually still alive and being kept alive by ice.
Yeah.
I guess. T'Challa eats
like
the
Austin
flower.
Powers.
Yeah, exactly. They stole his mojo.
Yeah.
That's what the movie's about. It's just about T'Challa
it's him
getting his mojo back.
Yeah, baby, yeah!
T'Challa eats the flower, gets his mojo back, and narrowly defeats Killmonger in hand-to-hand combat. He allows Killmonger to watch the Wakandan sunset one final time, and Killmonger chooses death over Wakandan imprisonment for his crimes. T'Challa, combining traditional Wakandan isolationism with Killmonger's desire to use Wakandan technology to lift up the oppressed, reveals Wakandan's secret success to the world.
Boom. Yeah, honestly, besides the reasons that we mentioned, these are both just highly, highly popular comic book movies made by auteur directors to a certain degree. Yeah, I mean, to varying degrees.
Yeah.
Both great movies. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
We break our movies down based off of 5 categories and a rating scale on each of those categories of 1 to 7, 1 being lowest, 7 being highest, and 4 being middleist or in between or average or neutral. Nick, let's start. Since we're talking about 2 spectacle of movies, let's start with our category Spectacularity.
Ooh, okay, awesome.
Which is where we talk about the engagement level of the movie.
This is the
whether
category.
you were fully torqued the whole time you were watching, or you were as bored as M'Baku listening to the qualms of higher noble tribes squabble over the future of their nation.
That was a run-on sentence.
Yep.
Spectacularity.
I got there, though.
is the category I was hoping we would start with because I want to make a point about The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, let's start with Dark Knight Rises.
It is... I need to rewatch Batman Begins, but I think it's the least exciting of the 3 in the
Dark
in the
Knight
trilogy.
Rises is?
Yeah. It just has this really long, dragging plot that takes away from the stakes. Like, you know that there's a nuclear bomb, but you also know the nuke is going to blow up in 5 to 6 months no matter what. And you also, the whole time, just know that Batman is going to make his way back and win in the end. Like, there's no actual stakes in this movie, and it makes it drag.
Yeah.
However, it's still really fun to watch because of how much details put into the characters. And then, like, it does a good job of making the stakes seem like high stakes, but it's like it's a facade. Like, if you like really think about the movie as you're watching it, you just know what's gonna happen, and it just seems like the whole Bane plot is just dragging.
Yeah.
I don't know. They do a good job of making the stakes seem high, like when they're talking to the military on the bridge.
Yeah.
Toward the middle end-ish of the movie. Like, you kind of find out that, like, this is a really big deal, and Gotham is...
He's like, you really think that, like, 1,000 of you could keep, like, millions from leaving, 12 million from leaving this city? He's like, no, but you can.
Yeah. Because if anyone leaves the city, they'll nuke it, but also they're going to nuke it no matter what. I don't know. I gave it a 4. I gave Dark Knight a 4 and Spectacularity.
The thing is like, I have to treat this as like any movie. If I'm basing it off of any other movie, especially like an action film, there's something about Christopher Nolan and his like action that keeps you engaged. And I think that he brings this, even though there are so many flaws to the movie, he keeps it at a higher level of like, it's like a more artistic level of comic book movie where you care a little bit more about the stakes. Maybe it's just because of Hans Zimmer's score. Like, that seems to be the thing that really draws you. I will say the movie's really long. It's close to 3 hours long. I think the concept of having Batman be framing himself for Harvey Dent and then going into hiding and then being like depleted and old and like just very much out of the game.
Cartilageless.
Yeah, I love that.
No cartilage in his
Yeah, he's
knees.
got no, and for that I can't recommend that you go hella skiing, Mr. Wayne. But like with that, like I like that concept. I don't know if that helps the engagement level. So like Pitch Meeting made fun of this movie and was like, you spend a long time waiting for Batman to become Batman again.
Twice.
And then, yeah, exactly. And then he's Batman for like 2 scenes. And then he gets his back broke. And then
that fight scene is cool.
It's really cool. And then he has to do it again. But there are a lot of like the hasha, hish, like you feel there's something there's like the fire rises in your chest when you watch this movie. So it is exciting. I think it shows a different side of Batman for the last act. And so I'm really engaged with the last third of the movie, regardless of any flaws. So I'm going to give it a slightly above average. I also think, though the beginning is stupid, it is, God, Christopher Nolan is so good at opening movies. Like,
yeah, the plane.
The plane hijack
So
is
cool,
such
but
a cool set piece. It's so well done. It's clearly practical effects. And he really keeps a lot of it. I think a lot of the stuff with Catwoman is really interesting as you go on. Mm-hmm. And they're just like, Bane is fucking terrifying. Like, he is legitimately a really scary villain, even if he's not fully fleshed out. And I think that keeps the story more engaging.
Right.
I'm going to give it a 5. I was actually close to giving it a 6 because I just like Christopher Nolan movies so much.
Right.
And engagement.
I felt like awarding it in other areas, but like
Fair.
I do agree, like the uniqueness of the characters, the fact that we're given basically a whole host of new characters to be interested in, because there's no more Rachel, there's no more Harvey Dent.
Yeah.
Commissioner Gordon's kind of sidelined.
There's that new like Matthew Modine character in JGL.
Now we have Blake,
Robin,
and and we have Catwoman now, and we've got Miranda, Talia.
Yeah,
like there's a bunch of new characters that kind of like hook you in, and there's like this facade of like this movie's like things are really important, but if you boil the movie down, like it's just like Batman is down, Batman is up, Batman's really down, Batman's back up. And I think it's going to happen that way.
I think it hurts so much when you rewatch. That's when the Spectacularity gets dropped down,
right?
Because you're pulled out.
Yeah, I've seen it like 4 times now.
I'm going to stick with a 5. I still think it's above average.
Fair enough.
Okay, let's go on to Black Panther Spectacularity. This one, I'm like really tempted to give a 7. And I know I'm probably not going to give it a 7. And I know there would be some people who would be like, what? Really? You were that engaged with Black Panther? Listen, I genuinely enjoy every moment of Black Panther. I don't think it drags. I don't think it's that long. It's like 2 hours and 15 or something, 2 hours and 20.
Yeah.
It's long, but there's a
like
lot.
Comic book movie long.
Yeah,
They're
you
all
wouldn't
long.
cut out much of it. It's a lot of it is really
It's
important.
like comic book movie normal. They're pretty much all long.
It's a spectacle. Unlike a lot of MCU movies, it's like really careful about everything that it shows you, and it builds that up in a story. It's fucking crazy that this movie has no other MCU character really and no other hero, and they carry the movie because they really flesh out the characters and make them interesting, and that keeps the engagement level.
Right.
I'm not a huge fan of expository intros to movies that explain everything, but they do it in such a cool way that I was immediately hooked into the movie
Oakland
with the
intro?
No, right before that when he's like, Baba, he's like, yes, my son. And he's like, tell me about like what Wakanda. And it's that cool animation about Wakanda using their technology. And they do it. They're not fully just saying, this is Wakanda. It got this. They say it in a very like spiritual, cultural way.
Right.
And fully explain why they became this important society, why they closed off to everyone else.
Right, it makes it that much more important when it's revealed that Killmonger is of Wakandan descent, too, which is like a legitimately really cool twist in the movie.
Yeah.
It loses its punch a bit, obviously, on a second watch or third watch or fourth watch. But like, I gave it a 6. The only thing that's keeping me from a 7 in Black Panther is that I want more Killmonger. I do like Ulysses Claw a lot.
Yeah.
But a lot of like Killmonger's story, however awesome it is exposition-y. Like you basically just have Commander Ross, who upon rewatching this movie is such an awesome character by the end.
Yeah, Everett Ross is really cool.
He does some really cool stuff, and like it's a little white saviory. I don't know if that's like
it definitely is, but I think like
that's like
Ryan Coogler
virtue signaling, is that the terminology?
It kind of is, but like I kind of trust that. I hope that wasn't the studio telling Ryan Coogler to do that.
I mean, yeah, at the end, like he kind of is, but he just serves like one really important part. Everyone really serves like a very important purpose in this. But anyways, you basically just have him telling you how badass Killmonger is.
Right.
I want to see him being badass because he's like a huge psychopath. I want to see.
Yeah, he's killed a lot of people in every country.
Yeah,
all over the world. So I could kill you.
I kind of want to see what that looks like. The only thing that wasn't a 7, I was like, oh man, like show me that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't even care if you do a flashback in the middle of this movie. Show me Killmonger being cool.
I honestly wouldn't
Bilbo
mind this movie
Baggins
being
tell
longer.
Me how cool he is.
More like dildo Baggins.
So I gave it a 6. I mean, it's a really, really engaging movie.
Yeah, I'm wondering why I'm not giving it a 7. I mean, I think I agree with that. I think I like Killmonger so much as a character. I don't care about the performance necessarily. I think it's a good performance. We'll get into that, but I think it's a really, really cool character. And you're right.
Yeah.
One thing I will say, it won for best score, and that's because Ludwig Göransson had just an incredible score. Yeah. And such a good soundtrack that Kendrick put together with a bunch of other artists. So it definitely keeps me engaged. I like it more than the average MCU movie, and we're both big MCU fans. It's really well done in terms of engagement.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a 6 as well. All right, let's move on to our next category. Let us do acting. Acting is where we talk about the performances and the writing of those performances and the directing of those performances and whether they were given the tools that they needed to be as believable and as strong of characters as possible.
I have a weird one for Dark Knight here.
Let's start with
Dark
Black Panther since we're on it. I'm hovering because between a 5 and a 6, and because I think that these are more fleshed out characters than maybe any other MCU movie. They are... You get, especially Killmonger, like even if we're not getting a lot of his backstory visually, he is a very well-written villain. A believable one. It's like when Thanos, when you actually believe Thanos, even though he's like a sociopath and psychopath and he wants to kill half the universe, you believe his cause because of the way he's saying it and the way it's written out. Mm-hmm. I think the same thing with Killmonger. It is a great story of oppression and it makes you believe in him. Yeah. And I actually think that Chadwick Boseman low-key gives an incredible performance.
Absolutely.
Like, I think in very subtle ways he is good. The looks he gives, the way he talks about certain things, you really believe the emotions. You really believe that he doesn't want to have to kill Killmonger, but he has to protect the world. And he's like, why the fuck did we do this? We are supposed to be noble people, and we allowed this to happen. We created this monster, and it was like, why? And I think he has a good emotional range. I think every side character is good in this movie, and that is very rare. Lupita Nyong'o is great. The woman who plays Okoye is really great. Winston Duke as M'Baku is like fucking amazing.
So great, dude.
Andy Serkis just firing on all cylinders in every moment. He is so
full South African accent. He's just crushing.
You want my mixtape?
Yeah.
He's so good. And then I know this is where I'm close to giving it a 5. It is a comic book movie, but I'm close to giving it a 5 because I can understand why people don't like what MBJ is doing, Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah.
I think it's I'm not from Oakland, but I am from the Bay Area. I've been around Oakland, people from Oakland. It is a believable accent, and I think that he gets the point across of his anger is like, and it's done. I don't think there's much more to it than that, and that's where the problem comes in. That he kind of talks in like his teeth are always out, and he's always angry, and he's always like, I'm the king or whatever.
Yeah, it's like a well-written character, and Michael B. Jordan, you got to praise him for making bold choices.
Yeah.
I don't know that they all work super well with how the character's written. That's my thing in this movie is like Killmonger is really great, but I feel like he could have been even better. But I mean, I'm nitpicking. Like, I'm going to give it a 6 still because I think Chadwick Boseman is legitimately a revelation in this movie. Like, he's really good.
He's like 40 years old.
Yeah, I know. I don't understand.
He looks like he's in his 20s in this movie.
I don't know. He's like he portrays like this really cool part of the movie that is not like it is like front and center kind of the whole idea of the movie. Like the main struggle is in T'Challa, and it's whether or not he should lead Wakanda into the future and branch out, because Wakanda is traditionally this very isolated, extremely secretive society. They don't let vibranium out. They don't let anything else in. Like, they are insular.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of it is, does he keep them insular?
Yeah, insulated. So insular.
Or does he branch out and use Wakanda's technology to support other people? And he ultimately chooses like a balance between the two.
And he does, and he shows all of that in his emotional range.
Yeah, he never says any of that, but like that's the struggle. And then that final scene, especially on this rewatch, where he revisits the site of his father's murder of his uncle. Of T'Challa's uncle, and decides that's where his first outreach is going to be. Yeah. And then he's like, that's the kid who comes up and talks to him is Little in Moonlight, the first, the youngest version of him. Oh, dude, that's awesome. But I think he looked a lot older at that time. Yeah, and like it's really cool. See, that scene is really cool at the end, and it's just like the final scene. This is like kind of a non sequitur. The post credit scene. No, the final scene where he's like, "Who are you?" Yeah. And then he looks at the camera. And he just looks at the camera. It's just like the I Am Iron Man scene, except for he doesn't say I Am Black Panther. I love that. And it's just cool because it's like at the end of Dave. Yeah. It's a really cool scene that I never really gave enough props to. I'm giving it a 6. I think that Chadwick Boseman is amazing. Everyone else is really good. I'm only not a 7 because of MBJ. Yeah, I'm gonna go with 6 as well. And I actually think not only is it that Chadwick Boseman brings it up, it's just that there are so many good side characters in this. Yeah, like Martin Freeman is really good. His chemistry with Andy Serkis is so great. Great. His chemistry. The girl who plays Shuri is really good. She's funny. She's a great character. She's on. I could see how they could make the little sister an annoying character, and she's not. She's really cool. And Angela Bassett also is like a legend, and she kills it in the movie. She has the dopest hair at the end. She does. Okay, so that's 6s from Nick and I for acting. Let's move on to Dark Knight Rises acting. This is tough. We haven't done enough Bane accents. This is tough because it's like the only two people that are really putting on like a big show are Tom Hardy and Michael Caine. Like really big acting performance. I do think that
there are moments when Gary Oldman actually kind of turns into Gary Oldman. He's not as subdued as he normally is, and I like that. Here's the thing. I know Christian Bale was really not satisfied with his performance. I personally love Christian Bale's performance as Batman in all these movies, and I think he especially nails it in this movie because he has more to do. He's more defeated. He's more run down. He's more angry. He's like, you get an understanding of his character. And I think a lot of there are really good main side performances. Absolutely my favorite Joseph Gordon-Levitt acting. I actually I like this more than Looper.
He's really great in this.
He's really good in it. I think I really like Anne Hathaway. I get that some people hate her. I don't fully understand it, but I think she's really cool in this. She's fun.
She does have a lot of really great one-liners. It is so dumb that
Bean Mendelsohn is great.
It's so dumb that Selena Kyle is just always has those goggles on the top of her head that look like cat ears.
I love it. And she's a cat burglar. I think it's cool.
It's such a silly...
I'm okay with it. There's a guy who dresses like a bat.
He doesn't dress like a bat.
He does.
He is a bat.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I mean, I really like her. But then there's really, really small side performances that are not good.
He's the man that dresses like a bat that we deserve.
Yeah, he's not the man who dresses like a bat that Gotham needs, but the one
man who dresses like a bat that Gotham deserves.
I think Matthew Modine is also really good in this, and it's a random one.
Yeah, I just so I don't like Marie Cotillard in this at all.
So when I studied abroad,
Marion Cotillard.
When I lived in France, my French teacher there, we were talking different actors and stuff, and he was like. He's one actor I absolutely hate is Marion Cotillard. He's I don't think she's a good actress, and I'm telling you right now, her French accent is not even a real French American accent.
Oh, interesting.
No.
I just
I think she's cool, but
I disagree about your point about Christian Bale. I think this is his weakest Batman. I don't buy a lot of the character from him, and I wonder if. Because he has said that he's a little disappointed with his overall performance. I wonder what he would do differently if he went back to this movie. I just don't 100% believe that the Batman that we know from the first two movies would be so beaten down by injury and the loss of Rachel that he'd just be a recluse for 4+ years and just be the weird Batman.
We had to be the scapegoat. But yeah, I don't see how it would don't destroy everything.
I don't know. Maybe I need to go back and rewatch the first two, but I don't 100% buy why he's so down. He's just so reclusive and weird. He's still Bruce Wayne.
I think because he failed to stop Rachel from dying, and he failed to stop Harvey Dent from what he became.
I just
and the Joker wins in Dark Knight.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's just kind of I don't know. I don't 100% believe that he would be stat beaten down.
Yeah.
He is. It just doesn't really sit with me 100%. But everything is really fine. There are a lot of there's one really big choice by an actor in this movie.
I am the League of Shadows.
That is awesome, and I don't think there's ever been a character that I quote more but misquote more than Bane. But it doesn't.
Oh, so you think the darkness is your ally?
I don't know.
I personally,
it doesn't 100% work. Giving it a 5.
Yeah, I think Bane's. I like the performance as Bane. I like the voice. I think it's really cool because I think I've been saying this to Nick. I think he's supposed to portray that he's much older than he looks, and that's why he sounds wizened and shit. But I think the problem more is. Christopher Nolan, for what I know that they couldn't hear him in the mask, I guess, but Christopher Nolan decided to make it so that he has an amplified speaker in his mask that does surround sound for you. So if you're watching the movie, his voice is coming from everywhere instead of from the specific location of Bane.
I don't remember,
and that's my problem with it.
I don't remember seeing what it was like seeing it in a theater, but when we rewatched it together on my TV, it is so off-putting that everyone else is talking normally, and all of a sudden when Bane talks, it comes equally from both speakers,
Yeah.
As if
And it surrounds you.
yeah,
And it's
as
so
if you're
loud.
like playing him on Spotify.
Yeah,
while
it's
the
a.
movie's on.
I
It's really
can't.
weird.
I can't imagine that no producer was like, "Hey, let's not do that." You know, anyone working on it. I'm gonna give it a 5. I think the thing is that Christopher Nolan's his comic book movies have slightly more believable and nuanced characters than the average ones. And that's why I'm giving it above average for its type of movie. I just think it's brought down by lame side characters and some weird choices. Fair? I'm gonna give it. What are you giving it, 4?
5.
Okay, yeah, 5 for both Nick and I.
I wrote 4, and then I went to 5, and then I went to 6, and then I went back to 5.
Yeah, it's like tough because obviously Dark
process
Knight
there.
is like a 7 in acting.
Yeah.
And Batman Begins is like a 6, but this one I just think there are some problems. And I didn't really think of it as acting, but I think of it more as character writing, and that's a big problem.
Right.
Let's move on to our next category, eye candy, where we talk about all the visual elements of the movies. These movies are actually very different visually, and so it's gonna be fun. They're like highly different versions of comic book movies. So let's start with Dark Knight Rises, eye candy. There's a part of me that wants to give this a 7.
I gave it a 7.
I
think Christopher Nolan should make all the comic book movies, and then all the ones that he doesn't have time to make, Ryan Coogler should make the rest of them.
I agree with that. Yeah, I think Ryan Coogler is very clearly he's great with a budget. Christopher Nolan is like the master of let's throw him a lot of money. It will be in safe hands. It's not going to look
The
stupid
devil
at
is in
all.
the details, dude.
Yeah, it's all practical effects.
Yeah, he put so much detail in the costuming, practical effects, the gadgets, the prison scenes.
There's like no CGI except for the
destruction of Gotham, the football. Yeah.
The football,
The most,
and then the
most
bat.
incredible opening kickoff return of all time.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like, was that guy going to have a kickoff return if the field wasn't falling apart? He was so far ahead. Yeah, I honestly, he's like, what a lovely voice. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I just think visually he makes the movies look so cool.
If you just watch The Dark Knight Rises and you don't put too much thought into where the plot falls thin and the Deus Ex Machinas and why Bane's voice comes at you from both speakers as if is just projected at you, like the movie is visually stunning, just like all of the other.
He's like the one director
movies
that does the helicopter shot of a city and it doesn't look dumb or like unnecessary. It just and I think his visuals are always so well aided by Hans Zimmer's score that it makes you like gives you goosebumps watching it.
Right.
I just above everything, even if the plane hijacking doesn't make any actual sense in story. No.
It's so
it
cool.
looks so fucking cool, and no other director could do that. The only other person I would trust with, like, if I were a big production company and I wanted to trust another director, the only other person right now I would do it with that much money and not a lot of practical effects is, or not a lot of CGI, is Denis Villeneuve, as he showed with like Blade Runner and Arrival and Sicario. They just look so good. Yeah, I'm gonna give it. Fuck, do I want to give it a 7? I'm gonna give it a 7. This is just my type of visual movie. I love it. It's not like the best cinematography ever, but it's great. I think it actually won cinematography.
Did it?
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna fact check you on that. I don't know. That might be fake news.
No, I think it did. All right. Well, let's move on to.
I also gave Black Panther a 7. Like I said, all of the superhero movies that Christopher Nolan
it didn't
can't make. I think Ryan Coogler should make the rest of them. I will always love the Killmonger entering into his newly won throne scene.
Yeah, the inverted shot.
Inverts Wakanda and him walking in just wearing the most pimp robe.
Expertly scored by Ludwig Göransson with that beat.
Cool. Yeah. It's just like, that's so great. And then like when you see M'Baku's lair, I really like that we get to see where they're at and like how cool the design is of like I forget the name of that tribe in Wakanda.
Jabari?
The Jabari tribe.
Yeah.
Jabari Parker.
Yeah, true. He might be. I don't know.
I don't know.
Probably not.
I love everything about that. I wish that I had a cool room in my future home that has a bunch of wood, like logs hanging from the ceiling, like M'Baku's throne room.
Yeah.
I gave it a 7. I don't think there's anything. I mean, I think Black Panther is beautifully put together.
I'm at a 6. I have problems with some things CGI wise. I don't like the way the rhinos look at all.
Oh yeah,
I'm
the
not.
rhinos are
It's just
excessive.
like, hey, let's just throw in something that's completely unnecessary to essentially have this color mashing like bullshit for nerds. There are some things about Black Panther's suit, the purple like kinetic energy that's coming off of it that looks a little silly to me. Whereas like when he shows up in Civil War, he just looks so cool. And
It's a different suit though.
Yeah, but exactly. But I don't really like the purple colors flashing across the screen. There is a lot of CGI in the movie. I will say there are some really cool other shots. I love the way they shoot the basketball scene at the very beginning with the kids outside in Oakland. It's like going around to each kid. I honestly wish that NBA games could be filmed the way that one was filmed. And they do it later too. And they do it whenever there's fight scenes. It's bouncing around other people. Really, really, there's one shot that is a CGI sort of editing shot, but it looks cool, is when they're fighting. Oh, I should have said this in Spectacularity. Like my favorite scene, engagement level wise, is the casino scene. Is so cool when it turns into a fight and Okoye is just fucking people up. And the shot goes up to the top where Okoye is fighting and you hear the chop, 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 and like the voices in the background. And I just think visually he makes those scenes look really, really cool, where it also gives me goosebumps.
They're very like James Bond-esque too. They remind me, I mean, not just because they're like gambling, but they remind me of like scenes in Casino Royale.
Yeah. It definitely, cool. It looks like Macau, the casino in Macau.
Yeah. Like the person that Okoye like bashes off the side of the
looks
balcony,
awesome.
like falls behind T'Challa.
And the way that T'Challa jumps up is really cool too, without his full suit on. I also really, really like visually that opening scene where they're explaining what Wakanda is. I think it's super cool.
Yeah, and like they could have made some of like the astral plane stuff. Like it's cool looking. It could have been lame, but it's really I really like it.
Yeah, I'm just one very, very simple thing visually. I love the way the spaceships or whatever that they have take off, that they like fall down into the pit and
that
then fly
looked
off.
great. Yeah,
it looked cool. So there are things I really like, but this is just for me. I'm not a huge CGI fan. I do think Ryan Coogler. It is crazy that Ryan Coogler went from Fruitvale Station to Creed to Black Panther, and that's it. And he is so good at it. So I'm gonna give it a 6, which is well above average, visually. Let's move on to our next category.
You're doing originality now?
Yeah, I think we should do originality. Why don't you start with Black Panther?
So,
I don't know the comic book. Did you read the comic book?
No, this is one that I didn't. My dad was a DC guy, so I read a lot more DC comics than Marvel comics. I actually don't know if I read any Marvel comics. No, Fantastic Four is Marvel. I read a lot of Fantastic Four.
That's cool.
Flame on! Yep, that's exactly the voice that I used in my head.
Flame! Fire rises!
I was born in the dark. Sounds like a kid fighting with his mom. I was born in the dark. Mom, you merely adopted it. Dark. I just think that Black Panther is a really necessary movie for multiple reasons to have been made. I don't know. Admittedly, I don't know how far it deviates from the comics or much about Black Panther in the comics. I just think that it's a necessary movie, and a huge part of that is I work in schools, and I saw firsthand how important it was to so many students who are people of color.
The Wakanda Forever thing became like a big cultural.
It's just really
moment.
and important to girls, to kids. because there are so many like powerful female characters in this too. Like it's just a really cool movie that needed to be made. I'm going to give it a 6 and not a 7 because I don't know if it deviates from the comics, if it borrows, I don't know like if it takes from a comic story. I don't know much about Killmonger. I know that he looks a lot different in the comics, and they took a lot of liberties with Killmonger's character that work really well to place him in the present day. Yeah. I mean, it's a cool progression too that Wakanda goes from isolationism to embracing a little bit more of a globalist ideal system.
I wonder if like we would give any MCU movie a 7 in originality.
I thought that exact same thing.
I think this is more. Here's the thing. We like watching pitch meetings, Screen Rant pitch meetings before
Gabe likes to
these.
Recommend them to me, and then I forget to watch them.
Yeah, but when we watch them, you notice that there are like they could just point out a lot of flaws you maybe missed.
Right.
If you watch the pitch meeting for Black Panther, it's more making fun of how skeptical the studio was of making this and how long it took them to make it, and then how like. There are like 2 flaws in the movie that they pick out, and I think that that's incredibly creative in terms of its writing. They point out that you have a fully developed villain with great like societal ideas in the movie, and that is just rare. And they're like, whoa! You want to like flesh out our villains? We don't do that.
That's awesome. I wouldn't say that Killmonger has great ideas.
No. Sorry, I meant separately. There are great societal ideas in the movie, and there's good character writing.
Killmonger definitely comes from a very extremist.
But what I like is that the original Black Panther comic actually came out before the Black Panther movement became known, and it didn't have anything to do. They even changed the name of him to like Black Leopard or something because they didn't want to associate with that. But I think it's really cool that Ryan Coogler inserted his own Oakland background into this movie and made it about Black Panthers, or about the cause that Black Panthers that we're fighting for, and that's what Killmonger is.
Right, like it's this analogy for the different approaches that you can have to protesting.
Right, and
how our society does not appreciate people of color.
Right, and it's cool to have Killmonger explain that because this is a highly trained, highly educated, but abandoned kid who knows that there's this line that he says that's so sad where when he's a kid and he talks to when he goes to the ancestral plane and he talks to his dad, who I forgot to mention, Sterling K. Brown is incredible in this movie.
Great.
But when he talks to him, he says, aren't you going to the dad says, aren't you sad for me for dying? He's like, everybody dies. That's just what it's like around here. And that is sad. That is something that is true. And I think that the way that these ideas are brought into it are really clever. And I don't think they smash you over the head with any of them. And I know that for some people they had problems that it's like a social justice warrior movie, but really it's like, no, these are important points. We will give you an entertainment vehicle to give you these points. And I like that every little detail is really important. They bring up everything later. There's like something as simple as them walking. They'll show you the X-ray machine when they walk into the casino, and then they use it when Claw and them show up to show you how much of a threat they are.
Yeah.
And that's really good filmmaking.
Yeah.
And then there's the tunnel, the electromagnetic tunnel. They explain that they basically show you that that's going to be important later, that it knocks out all vibranium when it's going through. I love the line where he says, Killmonger does not want to die. He is so true to his character till the end. He says, my ancestors jumped from the ships because they
knew that death was better than bondage.
And it's really cool to have his character say that because he's an African American. Yeah. His mom was from the U.S. and that means that his ancestors were slaves. As opposed to Chadwick Boseman,
because T'Challa gives him the option, like, I could, we could fix you up, and he's like, no, I don't want to be fixed up. You're gonna put me in prison. I've done terrible things, and I did them. He's true to what he did them for. in his mind, based on what he's experienced, which is very, very different than T'Challa's extremely privileged, upbringing in this.
Exactly. And
in this
an
society.
isolated bubble.
Yeah, in this bubble society, he's like literally it's in a bubble.
Yeah. Yeah.
He he knows that he's not going to go to prison. He'd rather die.
Yeah.
It's like his ancestors would rather have died than be imprisoned.
Beyond
or enslaved.
Yeah, exactly. Beyond race, I think the way that they handle gender is really good.
Yeah.
I think it's like in Avengers Infinity War and in Avengers Endgame, they have these two obnoxious scenes where all the girls get together and they're like, it's essentially like girl power. Let's throw this into the movie to make girls like happy with this movie. And I can't imagine that they're like, I'm sure like women and girls watch the movie and they're like, wow, this is a cool scene. But it's like, fuck you for just throwing this in here and forcing it. Whereas this, like, one thing I love is his, like, the king's strongest guards are all women. And they're badass. And Okoye might be the fiercest warrior in all of Wakanda.
Yeah, considering that she doesn't have any superpowers and she just wrecks people.
Yeah, it's awesome. And so I really, if anybody watched that scene and they're like, oh, come on, they're going to make women do that. It's like, no, they're not forcing this on you. They're just fucking sick women. And they're not explaining. They don't need to explain.
They don't need to explain
sick.
anything. It's a different culture. That's Wakandan culture.
Shuri's a young, highly intelligent. She's in charge of all the technology and medicine in their country.
It just is what it is in their culture that is a made up culture. And like, wouldn't it be nice if that was a real thing?
Yeah. I agree. One last thing before we move on, because I know we talked about this a lot, but I think this is like a testament to this comic book movie that there are so many important issues. I mean, the immigration and refugee thing that they bring into the post-credit scene is great. They've nailed it. They nailed it better than a lot of politicians have nailed it. It was kind of like, the wise build bridges instead of walls.
Right.
And that is a really cool scene that they put in there. And they even have the white French guy be like, what does Wakanda have to offer?
Yeah.
And then he looks at the camera. So anyways, I'm going to give it a 6. It's still a comic book movie. It's still based on some other stuff.
Same as me. I gave it a 6. All right, let's move on. If you say one more word, I'll feed you to my children. Just kidding. We're vegetarians.
That's another fucking cool thing, that the biggest characters are all vegetarians and have like superhuman strength, where he just picks up the dude and fucking throws him with one hand.
It's true.
It's pretty dumb, but it's cool.
It's great. I just had to throw that line in there. All right. Bath salts?
Yeah, I think that's what he says.
Yeah.
Let's talk about originality with Dark Knight Rises.
It doesn't have the most original plot. So the reason that we pit these together is because they have this like
structure,
the same kind of structure where it's like the main superhero is defeated and then he's not defeated and then he comes back and then he's it's just
the Dark Knight Rises twice
in this movie, and I just don't think it follows the most original plot. But the take on Bane is really original. Like, that's not what Bane in the comics is like. And that through line of like Ra's al Ghul's whole plot kind of coming,
that it's the whole
coming to a head in this movie. The twist with Talia is kind of not. I mean, like, it's just not well received, but it does come out of nowhere and
it blew my mind the first time.
And like, and does kind of blow your mind. And the visual creativity make up for any like plot structure like issues that it has. I think that overall it is a good ending to that trilogy.
Yeah.
And I gave it a 5.
Yeah, I'm there. I'm like, it is kind of average in a certain. The problem with the movie, and especially in originality, is when we talk about writing, is that there are a lot of flaws. If you poke holes in this movie, like you will, or if you really search, you can poke holes.
Yeah.
You can. But I think what you said is a great point. He had to wrap up his whole trilogy, and I think that it is even if the movie itself is not satisfying, the trilogy is really satisfying. It comes together. It's the way. This is exactly how Batman's story needs to end, unless he died. I would have been okay if he died. I don't get how the fuck he escaped. It makes literally no sense that the ship has a blast radius of 6 miles, and they even show him in the ship with like 6 seconds left. I mean, how the fuck does
it's riddled with bullets.
Batman also? How does he escape? Once he escapes the prison, how does he get home? There's just so many there's too many question marks, and I think that brings it down. But I think that Christopher Nolan just does something that everyone else in DC is just incapable of doing. And I think that goes into the writing. Yeah. I think he still is coming up with really cool storylines and twists. He's such a king of twists. It's a movie that
tries to do so much that it just kind of, it has to leave holes.
Yeah.
Because there's so much trying to be done all in one film. And it is what it is. It's just not The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
It's just not as good as the movie that preceded it.
Yeah, and I think it's hurt by that.
And it could have never been.
Well, I'm gonna go with a 5 as well. I was close to a 4. All right, let's go to our last category, legacy, where we talk about what the lasting legacy is of the movie, how people received it, how people talk about it over time, how did it do. Let's start with Dark Knight Rises. This is another tough one.
Yeah.
This movie made a lot of money.
A lot.
Because people really like Christopher Nolan's movies. There are still a lot of people that don't like Marvel. They don't like the MCU movies. They think they're overrated. And they think we'll never get to a point of Christopher Nolan's superhero movies again. I think that's fair. I like the way he does that.
Yeah.
People really liked it.
But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It made over $1 billion. It has an 8.4 on IMDb, which is fucking absurd. Like, that is too high for a movie with so many problems.
Yep.
And I
didn't notice that. Yeah.
And that's because people like Krista, and it's going to demonstrate my point I'm going to bring up in Black Panther, that it got an 8.4. It's just that it's not trying to like really prove anything, and I think people don't have any like social problems with it, and they like Christopher Nolan. It's decent, decent critical stuff. You could see that it was lower than Dark Knight and Batman Begins. It's a 78 on Metacritic, at 87% on Rotten Tomatoes. One thing that's really hurt is that it's always going to be in the League of Shadows. It's always going to be in the shadow of Dark Knight, and that fucking killed this movie for a lot of people. People walked out and they were like, that was cool, but I was disappointed. And that's because Dark Knight is so good. And I do think over time, people have hated Tom Hardy's performance more and more.
It's just so... It's not even really his performance, because I think that he disappears into Bane. Like, you can... Yeah. I mean, it's partly because he's wearing a mask.
Yeah.
But also, like, Tom
Nobody
Hardy's...
cared who I was until I put on the mask.
Sorry. You don't fear death. You welcome it. I had a hard time with Legacy for this one for all those reasons that you said. I think that it does wrap up the trilogy well, but it should have been like a 5-hour-long movie or had a different plot, because it's just too much. And I do think that it is the second most memorable of the 3 movies, even though Batman Begins is probably a better movie.
Yeah.
I think that it's the second most memorable after The Dark Knight, obviously.
Yeah.
If for no other reason than the choices that Hardy makes. And, for that reason, I'm going to give it a 6. It made a lot of money. It is, it's great, but it's not perfect.
I don't know. I'm like I kind of want to give it a 5 because it is above average.
It's just like it's part of this like amazing, never forgotten trilogy.
I think your point about originality kind of goes into this. That well, first of all, it was really, really well received. Really well received. I mean, the fact that it wasn't nominated for any Oscars is pretty bad, considering how popular the other 2 were. Like, not even visual effects and stuff, because it pissed off people. But it ended this trilogy, and you think of it as part of the trilogy, and it's necessary, and people are actually excited to rewatch it. So
right, if
I'm
it's
gonna
like
give it a
standalone movie, it's not a 6.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna give it a 6. Let's talk about Black Panther. This is slightly controversial, even though it really shouldn't be.
It's a 7 to me. It's one of the best MCU movies. It has like a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes. It is critically acclaimed. It is important for young African American people and for young women to have a voice and like a person of color that is a superhero to look up to and who is surrounded by like strong, powerful women in a society where, like we said, like it's just nobody has to explain to you that Wakanda has a much more progressive view of the abilities of women.
Yeah.
It's just there. And it's nice to just have this like, boom, we got this society. This is what it looks like. Wouldn't it be cool if this was a thing? This is, I mean, this is an amazing, almost perfect movie to me as far as superhero movies go.
I totally
You
agree.
could talk about the controversy.
Yeah, I mean,
but I gave it a 7. I don't think there's any question.
I gave it a 7 as well. I think it was nominated for 7 Oscars. It won 3. There was like some people really wanted it to win Best Picture. If the Oscars had done the stupid choice to have the most popular movie award, it would have won. It made $1.3 billion off of a $200 million budget. And this is like, and it was a standalone movie that made that much.
Right.
It basically was like, with this, Get Out and Girls Trip, these directors prove to Hollywood, stop assuming that if there are people of color as the lead in these movies, it's not going to make money. Don't believe that. That doesn't make any sense. The black community goes to the theater as much as everyone else, if not more. And they probably were tired of not seeing any representation in the movies. That being said, there was a response. If you look at audience scores for this, and if I even talk about this with my friends, like some of my friends, and it's fine not to like the movie. I don't fully get it. But it got a 75% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, which I have, and it got a 7.3 on IMDb. And we're talking about Dark Knight Rises is an 8.3, and it is not well loved.
I don't get that.
I think there's a lot of trolling going on. I think there's a lot of like people refusing to like it because they think that it's pressing some message of race and gender and social issues on you, but it is not. And if you are experiencing it in that way, I think the problem is with you. I don't think no one is calling you a racist for not liking the movie. They're calling you a racist for thinking that the movie,
that this movie is some sort of like affront to your like way of life.
Yeah, and
it's just a movie it's just a black superhero movie. Like, chill out.
And I walked out of the theater like I wasn't thinking about a lot of the social issues of it or the political issues. Even though I really liked those, I walked out being like, holy shit, that movie was so cool. Like everything about it was so cool. The characters were so cool, so well written. And I could get the MBJ hate that some people had, but I'm like, dude, would you rather have a villain who just wants to destroy everything with no other like fucking Red Skull in Captain America? Like, sorry that they actually maybe you don't like the way that Michael B. Jordan portrayed the character, but the character itself is fucking cool. It's like, besides Thanos, he is the best. I love Ronan the Accuser, but he is way less developed than Killmonger. He's essentially the same character, except for Killmonger wants to help the oppressed, whereas Ronan thinks that his people were oppressed, and now he wants to cleanse the world of them, which is more disturbing. I just think that this movie I mean, as you said, its lasting legacy is like, this movie is really important to a lot of people. And for the people that it's not necessarily important to you and uplifting and empowering, at the very least, it's a movie you want to rewatch because it's fucking cool. And that's it. And like, it is going to have this, like, first of all, we're not going to have another Black Panther until like 2022 or 23. And it was so successful that you see an Infinity War that had been made around the same time, and they barely have any Black Panther in it. And then it feels weird that there's not a lot of Black Panther in Infinity War because he's so well done in this movie. It's a 7. I can get why some people might not like it, but I think like evaluate why you don't
I mean,
like
even
it.
that you're having the discussion gives it a legacy. Though.
Exactly. I think it's going to be that.
All right.
What's added up?
Let's take a second to add it up.
Yeah, that's me. Okay.
I forgot to write down your scores as we did it. That's why I said. And so, I think after some calculations, if my calculations are correct.
If my calculations are correct.
If my calculations are correct.
That was a good one.
That was a good one, but it's so quiet.
But you can't hear it because I'm speaking literally into a mug. That's the trick, everyone out there.
Just speak
Just
into a mug.
speak into a mug and you sound like Ban. I believe Dark Knight from me gets a 27, from you gets a 28, which means it has a total of 55.
Pretty good.
Black Panther, surprising even to me, I only very narrowly docked from being perfect. It's a 32 out of 35 for me.
31.
It's a 31 for you, which means that Black Panther wins 63 to 50.
63 out of 70. That's the thing. I mean, Black Panther is a fucking great movie, and we are both big comic book movie fans. All right, cool. Well, let's get into some accolades then. Now that Black Panther has won, let's see if it'll win any other awards. So our accolade section, we're going to break down some awards and give them to the movies. So let's start with MVP. Who won these movies for you?
This was a tough one. I don't
know.
I don't know like who is really the MVP here. I think that it has to be. Isn't it just always superhero movies when we do superhero
I mean
movies?
superhero. Yeah, no, I think it's like high concept superhero movies are cool.
That's the MVP here.
Yeah. I think Ryan Coogler really kills it. And I think that there was
He
probably
really
a lot
does.
of questions going into it because he didn't have a lot of experience and he proved it.
My
tenfold.
LVP is Marion Cotillard.
My LVP, is it Marion Cotillard? I don't think she's that bad, personally. I do think it's funny that the way that she dies is
Yeah,
so scary.
especially
It's like
after
she just
watching that.
realizes that she suddenly dies. My LVP is probably... I think it's like honestly studios for not trusting that movies that are led by people of color could be really successful.
That's a stupid thing to think.
Yeah, I just
true.
don't get it. And they're so clearly some of the most popular movies now.
Yeah. Who you got for your six man?
My six man. So six man is the person who did the most with the least. This is obvious. This person should win it for every movie ever. It's Andy Serkis. He's so good as Ulysses Claw.
It's true. I almost gave this one to Bilbo Baggins, but I think I'm going to agree with you, and it has to be Ulysses Claw.
It's just he cranks it up so high in this movie. Like when he fires his like handgun and all the money is going around, he's like, "Oh, I met this rain," and then he's like, and he has like a really raspy, dry laugh. And then when he's singing, what is he singing in the interrogation room? Or when it just starts with him, he's like, "Oh, I see you. You're right there. I see you."
Yeah.
And he's just
I
like,
don't know what he's singing, but he is great. I'm going to give him six man too. You convinced me when we talked off air.
I was close with, I think Okoye is really good as well.
True. That's a good second pick.
Ben Mendelsohn also he's just so good always, but it's not his best role.
No, I'm going to give my comeback player.
Do you feel in charge?
I'm going to give my comeback player as a tie.
Okay.
I'm going to give it to Everett Ross and Selena Kyle. I'm
Yeah.
gonna give them both comeback because I did not really care for either of those characters before this rewatch, and I was like, you know what, I appreciate these two.
Yeah, I think Selena Kyle is a really good one for the character that came back and kind of proved something for you.
Yeah.
Like her story is really good, and I actually think there's a similar story with M'Baku. Is a really good. I mean, there's a lot of them. So there's M'Baku, there's Selena Kyle, there's Matthew Modine's character in Dark Knight Rises, who gets essentially shamed out of his home by Commissioner Gordon and fucking dies for it.
Yep.
And Gordon doesn't die, but Gordon also like lost his whole family because he was trying to do the right thing. But they knew, that's why, because they knew he did the wrong thing. He framed Batman with Batman.
Follow false idol.
Yeah. And then
I really hope you can hear any of the mug stuff.
it's pretty good. Yeah, I'm gonna give it like those three are really good. I think that they all just like really grow on you. I also think Killmonger is just like they really grow that character over it.
Totally.
Who's your all-star team?
He's in my all-star team. I'm gonna give it. I'm gonna go Killmonger, T'Challa. I mean, there's too many actually. Honestly, Okoye for sure has to be in there. What's that? 3. So I need 2 more. I guess I'll give Tom Hardy a nod here. I don't love
I
that.
haven't decided whether, like, in my head, whether Tom Hardy's a good actor.
What?
I mean, no, he's a good actor, but I don't think he's a great actor
He's not
anymore.
always a great actor.
He's made some weird
makes
fucking choices.
He makes very bold choices, and
But he
with
kind of
that,
does them well.
With that level of risk, you're bound to fail sometimes.
Yeah, I
He
mean,
definitely
you guys
does.
should see Capone and let me know.
Yeah, exactly.
They're in his good roles. I really do like him. Like Locke and Bronson, he's amazing.
So I'll fill out my last spot.
I thought you picked 5.
No, I'm gonna fill out my last spot with. Man, I want to pick a good one from Black Panther that's just like not like a super. Dude.
Winston Duke, M'Baku?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like blanking on his name for some reason.
He is so good in it.
He's so great, and he's such a large, imposing man. But he has that.
It's really
like,
interesting to see him in-
vegetarian line is so great too. Julie thinks thinks she read somewhere that might have been an ad lib from him.
Oh, that's cool.
But I forgot to fact check it, so I don't know if it is.
And
If
it is weird to
great.
see Winston Duke right afterwards play kind of a nerdy, unassuming character in Us.
Yeah.
Regardless of if you like it. I am going to go mostly the same. So I'm going to go T'Challa, Ulysses Claw, Killmonger, Alfred Pennyworth. No, I think Michael Caine does like an incredible job in Dark Knight Rises. It's just a lot of crying, but it's really good. And then it's like I'm hovering between Blake and M'Baku, but I think I'm gonna go M'Baku. I do really like Joseph Gordon-Levitt's acting in it. It's like I don't like him as an actor that much, and I think he's great in Dark Knight Rises. Any stupid scene? We've already kind of talked about any of the stupidest scenes.
They're all from The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, I mean, there are some dumb... I don't really like the meme moment of the, what are those? In Black Panther, but that scene itself is really cool. And I think that shows off like Chadwick Boseman's like goofy side.
Yeah,
which is cool.
Yeah, where he's like,
and Shuri's
I
awesome.
tried. It's my first day. I'm trying to just be like, I'm trying to think like, what would Dad want?
Yeah,
it's a cool scene to just kind of.
Oh, and I think there's a reference to his dad, Baba, liking Back to the Future too. Because when he puts on the shoes, they're like supercharged or something, and Shuri says, "Like that movie Baba always made us watch."
Oh, yeah.
And that has to be those shoes from Back to the
like
Future
lace
too.
up.
I thought you would have caught
Totally,
that.
I did not catch that. That's awesome.
Okay. What are we going to do next week? Next week, we are going to do Knives Out versus Clue, 2 whodunit movies making fun of whodunit movies while also being whodunit movies.
Right.
And they are both on Amazon Prime, so go check those out. That's going to be fun.
Do you have any recommendations? Because I recommend Shea Serrano's podcast, Villains, about the Eric Killmonger episode's great.
Yeah, definitely look up Villains, the podcast. I would say, Fruitvale Station. 100% watch Fruitvale Station. It is so good. It's Ryan Coogler's first movie. It's why him and Michael B. Jordan team up together. I say Creed, even if you don't like boxing movies, like Jimmy is someone who doesn't like it, I highly recommend Creed. That's pretty much it. Yeah, just go watch movies with those people in them. And then, and go, you can follow us on social media.
The music party.
So we are on Instagram, instagram.com/facingoffpod. We would really like it if you share our podcast on Instagram and encourage others to follow us there, because giving you a lot of recommendations, we're just going to be a little more active on that. But check it out. We have like a curated list of movies about race and inequality and injustice. Check those out. And then, of course, some other ones that are streaming. Follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/facingoffpod. You can send us emails. We would love to get your emails about what you thought about these movies. And if our ratings are so off base, Gabe, they're so off base. facingoffpodcast@gmail.com. Nick, do you have a send-off?
Oh, I mean, we can just...